Call the meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and prayer. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I would like to welcome Reverend Mike McDonald from the Black Mountain United Methodist Church for the invocation.
Let us pray. Most loving and gracious God, we give thanks to you for our town and for those who served in its governance and in its care for the community. We pray that you will bless them and guide them in the building of goodwill, compassion, health, safety, and the prosperity of our town. We pray that you will cause Black Mountain to be an example of equality and justice. We ask this in your holy name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. All right. All right, we have a proclamation here for the litter sweep. Whereas the North Carolina Department of Transportation organizes an annual spring statewide roadside cleanup to ensure clean and beautiful roads in North Carolina, and whereas the spring 2017 litter sweep roadside cleanup will take place April the 12th through April the 29th, 2017, whereas Adopt a Highway volunteers, Department of Transportation employees, Department of Correction inmates and community service workers, local government agencies, community leaders, civic and community organizations, businesses, churches, schools, and environmentally concerned citizens conduct annual local cleanups during the litter sweep. And whereas this year Black Mountain will observe the annual cleanup on Saturday, April the 1st. Now therefore I see Michael Sobel, Mayor of the town of Black Mountain, do hereby proclaim April 15th through the 29th as a spring litter sweep time in our town. Encourage all citizens to take an active role in making our community cleaner and more beautiful. I'm glad this year that we were able to make this proclamation prior to the litter sweep. For the past 2 years, unfortunately, we made this proclamation after the litter sweep. Next, we've got the Certificate of Achievement and Excellence in Financial Reporting. Do you want to speak to this?
I'll be glad to, because they have a letter and an award. And we've received this award for the last few years, but it's an award of financial reporting achievement. It's given to the finance department and to the assistant town manager, finance director, Dean Luby. Is from the Government Finance Officers Association, and it's a certificate of achievement for excellence in financial reporting. It has to do with our CAFR and our audit process, and I think it's an honor that we've been able to achieve it, and we're pleased to continue to receive that award annually.
All right. Next, we have the North Carolina Department of Justice and Law Enforcement Training and Standards Commission. The Advanced Law Enforcement Certification that we're going to award to two of our officers here just in a minute is based on years of experience, training, and education through criminal justice standards. It is the most distinctive professional award that can be awarded from the North Carolina Department of Justice and Law Enforcement Training and Standards Commissions. So if Sergeant Chris Staton and Detective Chris Kuhn will please come forward. Both of these gentlemen have put in lots of hours. We're not talking about training for a week or for a month. This is a lot of work, and there's not many people that get this. So I would like to Michael Satin. There you are, sir. Congratulations. John Kuhn. Thank you, sir. Probably should have said it under announcements, but I just wanted to say that we had a little anniversary, a retirement party for one of our employees that retired, Mark White. been with the town for many, many years, done an excellent job, and he is now officially retired from the town. We will certainly miss him, and we certainly hope that Charlie will fill in his position adequately. Citizen comment. First up, Doug Brock.
Well, I thought I put myself second on the list.
Well, you did, but no one filled in for number one.
Yeah, well, this is the luck of me.
You won the spot.
All right, well, I know this is a short period of time. I have an opportunity to speak to the traffic, and I won't speak to the tragedy. I think there are probably other people that could do that better than me that have known. And the tragedies relative to traffic, the young child who lost her life on Highway 70 and the young man who's in dire straits there on, the crash that happened. But I want to speak to some actionable things we could do to manage traffic. And I'll be as brief as I can about it, but I've done a lot of research on it. And I've thought to share some of it with you in a way that you might start to grasp the problem or the opportunity to correct some things or to anticipate some things. And let me speak to some mundane things just for a minute. The traffic counts, which are really important. I don't know if they realize how important they are when it comes to how the DOT makes recommendations about how to manage traffic in the community. And they are based on statistical data. And so to give you just some references, just to a minute, on traffic counts. And let's start with the interstate. So at interstate prior to 64, just west of town, 64, the traffic count in 2014 was 40,000 a day. And so once again, so I'll remind you all, that's 2014 was 40,000 a day. 2014, at the same time period, there was two other important traffic counts to acknowledge. One's on Blue Ridge Road, which of course is going to be a discussion that will happen for some years from now. That was 4,000 a day, and that was just a little bit west of Highway 9. And then the other traffic count that might be significant to give reference to that was the one that's on Highway 70 near the between Interstate 40 and the railroad. That's 7,500 a day. And those are, you remember, so the lane distinctions are, that's a 4-lane road, and then the Blue Ridge Road is 4,000 a day, and that's a 2-lane road. And so here we go. What are we doing to plan for the future of traffic? So you got a couple of actionable things that are going to come before you soon. One is a suggestion and an amendment suggestion that the planning board just recently passed, which was the amendment to require anybody that wants to close a street needs to ask some input from the Greenways Commission.
Hate to cut you off on this, but that's what we're trying to do, is just do. It's very important what you got to say. I'd love to. I'm making some notes here on these things. So,
okay.
We need to get this information from you. And anybody that has any ideas about how to do this, because I've been sitting up at this traffic light there in Black Mountain taking counts, trying to see about lanes, and lane changes. So
what are you asking me to do, Mike? Can I finish my 2 minutes?
Well, that we're going to keep it to.
Well,
Yeah.
I don't think there's. What do you want me?
What does the board want to do on this? We just will stay to 3 minutes. We're going to give them 2 more minutes.
Well, I hadn't gotten to 3 minutes yet.
No.
I have a counter.
Yeah.
Oh, your signal. Well, alrighty. Okay. Well, there we go.
Anyway.
So it's an important issue.
I'd be glad if you have written record. I mean, I'd be glad to take those from you. I mean, when you.
Well, let me just offer. So here are the traffic counts that were offered in 2014 by DOT. And maybe I'll hang around to speak to it later.
If you would, I would appreciate it, because there's another.
Is that what you
citizen
recommend
comment.
that I do?
Yes.
I will.
3 more minutes then on that one. So, all right, Weston Hall.
I was going to speak to the same issue of traffic.
And give your name and address.
My name is Weston Hall, 100 Port Manvilla. I read the study, the traffic study, and it seemed to be really thorough, and they did a really good job. I did notice that I really wanted Charlotte Street to be included in that because it's right behind the primary school, and it's got a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit. I think that's a little excessive for right behind the primary school, especially when kids are going in and out. And I've seen some near misses, and even though I'm a firefighter and I always see disaster at the end of most things, there's been some close calls, and I think it'd be good to lower the speed limit and probably include it on our next study, Matt. And also, there's power poles on Church Street. They're in the road. They're on the side of the road, but they're definitely in the road. And there needs to be, I was surprised that it was not commented on in the study. I did not see it if it was. And I guess it was put to me, what should you do about that? I didn't put the power poles there, so I have no idea. But they need to be either moved back or bury the power lines or something like that. I have no idea what to do, but it needs to be addressed, definitely. The study on 4th Street looked at the average speed, and I think it was 27 miles an hour, or 28 miles per hour, and that was going west, I believe. And where they put the things across the road to measure the speed was only 18 feet away from the stop sign, so people are really laying on it right next to the stop sign, and that's not their peak speed. Their peak speed gets up to around, or starts, I guess, around 104 on 4th Street, which is about midway. And so that was, I saw that as a thing the group needs to look at next time. So, any questions?
Thank you, Barrett.
Thanks, sir.
Next up, Rick Harwood.
Rick Harwood, 110 Beach Street Drive. Also, I have property at 208 West State Street and 100 Darty Street. I did go to a meeting over at the lake other evening and got to listen to some comments made. And I noticed that when my wife and I left there, I went back up to the end of Darty Street at Red Rocker, and I came down that street at 25 miles an hour. There is a sign on my property there that says 25, and I thought, wow, if someone's out there walking the dog or an elderly person taking an evening stroll, that's pretty good speed. I rode that 3 times. I went back, I came down 20 miles an hour. I don't think we would save a child's life if they ran out in front of a car to catch a ball. I know that's a busy street. I don't have a clue except what I heard number-wise and what's been told that travels that street, which kind of blew my mind, 500 cars a day sometimes. I do realize that it's a shortcut from Montreat, out Laurel Circle, up Church Street, out Conley, and shoot it down Darty to get to the traffic light. Or they shoot up Darty at the traffic light, shoot across 70, up Darty Street, going home in the afternoons. I heard different recommendations that they were going to try to ask for about slowing traffic down. I guess I'm going to try to be a kind of conservative man on one end of this. I would like to see maybe the speed limit changed to 15 miles an hour and patrolled heavier than what it's being patrolled, and maybe issue a few tickets that might open a few eyes before we think about paving bumps and humps and different things out in the middle of the street. I know that would be costly, and then somebody's got to take care of that issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Next up, Julie Moore.
I'm speaking again on the same topic of traffic. My name is Julie Moore, and I live at 203 North Doherty Street with my husband Chris and our dog Leroy. And I first wanted to share that, our neighborhood spoke with the planning board back in September of 2016. So issue of traffic just isn't recent with the incidences we've had on 70. But it has been an issue that's been ongoing and something that we as a neighborhood and neighbors are concerned about. And I've also want to thank the town and Matt Settlemyer for the work and the planning board on doing and implementing a traffic study for our area, which is something I think you're going to hear a little bit more about tonight. And formally, I brought together our neighborhood to the Lakeview Center, and we just kind of went over some of the things in the traffic study and what the findings were and some of our suggestions. And Church and Doherty and Connolly were well represented at the meeting. Laurel Circle Drive, we did not have a representative that was able to attend in such short notice. We first want to point out that this traffic study was conducted January 17th and 18th, which, matter of time and situation, it's a Tuesday and Wednesday. We all know January and February for our town are a little slower months than the summertime. So that needs to be taken into account when you look over the study. And we know in the summer times, the tourists, the outdoor walkers increase heavily, especially in our neighborhood. We definitely agree with education and enforcement, and we all know that we are aware that that could increase even some of our neighbors having tickets. We forget at the end of the day sometimes and come down Doherty Street a little too fast. That should be, we understand as a neighborhood that falls on our own shoulders if we are going above the speed limit. We also are willing to do some more work on education and educating the town. Pavement markings, center lines, stop bars, we're all in agreement that adding those lines needed to be to the street and could possibly add some slowness to the traffic through our neighborhoods. More signage of speed limits, like Connolly and Church, are not well signed for the speed limits. And Church right now is a 25 mile per hour zone where everything else is 20 around us. So we would like to request that Church be lowered to at least 20. Rick Harwood mentioned 15. In this traffic study, as far as rumble strips are discussed, rumble strips will also bring added noise. And I read some other traffic studies from other areas in Michigan and things like that where rumble strips, they tried them and the added noise were a disadvantage. One thing that we would like to understand as a neighborhood and we question is the difference between the speed humps and speed tables versus rumble strips. So we're going to try and work together and get more education on that. This is our
3 minutes.
3 minutes.
Push that over.
Okay, thank you.
All right. We will now discuss the neighborhood roadway assessment.
And I'll give you a brief overview of the assessment that you have. And if anybody in the audience wants a copy, they can obviously have a copy. We'll get that to you. I think some people probably do have them. You can see from the report that this is a roadway assessment for the residential areas, and I'm just going to read this section because this is the introduction. Known as the 4th Street neighborhood and the Cragmont neighborhood. That's how we defined it. The 4th Street neighborhood is basically 1st through 4th, and 1st, 3rd, and 4th Street as it goes through. In Cragmont, we defined it's coming from Cragmont up to Church Street, with State Street and Laurel Circle Drive as the boundaries with Doherty in the center of those two areas. Those seem to be areas that had the most neighborhood concern, and so we did hire JMT Engineering to take a look and give us some numbers. And of course, they have a long appendix of the actual counts. I didn't add that in here, but I will point out that they do and I don't disagree with Julie that we did do the study in January. That's and we know that the numbers change here. We're a seasonal town in a lot of respects, but even with that, I think it's fair to say that speeds on 1st Street and 4th Street were still considered to be above the range of what would be considered normal for neighborhoods. The same goes for Church Street and Conley, and what we had called the Cragmont area. I think there's three three areas that we'd like to approach this with. And certainly education and enforcement are two of the areas that we want to do. But I think there's also based on the study, there's some opportunities for physical or visual cues that will that might make the roads look more narrow. I think as some people had pointed out, striping the roads with stripes on the side, stripes in the middle makes your lanes more narrow. We did put flags on the stop signs. I do agree, and I think that Lieutenant Austin and I have spoken some about it. It is odd that Doherty is 25 miles per hour and State Street is 20 miles per hour coming up to it. So I do think some consistency there. I don't disagree with Rick on speed limits. We can go back and look at specifics on that and bring some of those back to you. I'd like to get this done before before springtime when the tourist season comes in. But I do think that changing some speed limits, from 25 to 20s, and Church Street, and Charlotte Street is also one that I would, because First Street kind of comes into that behind the school. I don't think we would have an issue with that. It will we would provide increased enforcement in those areas. I think as again, because Julie and I have spoken extensively about this. What generally happens is, which is fine, is that the people that live in those neighborhoods are going to get tickets. That's what's going to happen. And the other people will too, but that's who. But that's where that's who's going to get caught going. That's used to getting home at a certain time, and they're going home at that time, and so that's who's going to get tickets, and that's okay. I think that's who you're trying. You're trying to slow people down. You're not trying to pick and choose between who is cutting through to avoid an intersection. And who lives there and just wants to get home by 5:09. But I think that heightened level of enforcement. I think if you change some of the speed limits, you heighten the level of enforcement. I think we do need to do some additional education, either both in the paper, actual flyers to the neighborhood, which we have some plans to do some of those things, to trying to kind of let people know. They've done a good job, frankly, within the neighborhoods on their own of putting up signs and getting the word out. I think we should partner up and be involved in that. And then finally, the visual cues, narrowing the road. The radar signs have been very helpful and very popular. I will point out, for example, because I know that I talked to some people on 4th Street about a radar sign, and it actually wouldn't work there because the way their sign sits on 4th Street, it hit mailboxes. The radar goes out at an angle and then catches, and then it picks up your speed. Well, where it sat, hit mailboxes that didn't allow it to register. It didn't allow it to have a free range to register the sign. So there are some limitations that we need to work around. But I do think that the radar signs have actually been pretty popular and I think most of the neighborhoods would agree they've been successful in people being aware of what their speeds are. So I would like to try, and they're cost-effective measures. The rumble strips, I understand. Here's the difference between the rumble strips and speed humps and speed tables. The concern is those are permanent infrastructure changes on the road. So they impact emergency response and they impact snow removal and public service response. The rumble strips that are recommended in this study are temporary. They're basically to give you awareness. You would put them at a certain distance from stop signs or a certain distance from the speed limit signs, so that when you hit them, yes, will you feel them and know that they're actually on 4th Street. They're worn down now, but there were some put in many years ago. I don't know, many years ago, but years ago that are asphalt strips across 4th Street, kind of close to the stop sign, to kind of make you pay attention to where a stop sign is. That's how these would work. You would put them out. It would give you more awareness for the drivers. You put them out at times of the year and times of the day. They would be longer than that. So times of the year when you know that the traffic is going to be heavier, which would be obviously in our spring and summertime. Well, really, there's no, except for maybe January and February, we don't have any times of the year now where it's not terribly busy. But you put those out, people will be aware of signage and paying attention to what's on the road. Then you would take those up and move those to other neighborhoods. And that is the concept there, is to increase awareness. That, in addition to some visual cues, like I said, striping the middle of the road, striping the edges of the road, additional parking on the street. Those types of options give people cues that say the road is more narrow than it looks now. If you drive down Doherty Street, yeah, you know, if you don't pay attention to children and people walking their dogs, it looks like a road that you can drive quickly on, because that's how it's a wide road, and it doesn't have a sidewalk on the side. So if you're not walking on the road and there's no visual cue to tell you that you're driving into a neighborhood. Like I said, it is odd that you come off of State Street at 20 miles per hour onto a road that's clearly going into a residential neighborhood at 25 miles an hour. I think some of those inconsistencies just need to be addressed with changes to speed limits. Again, striping. What I would probably offer to do is to meet with some of the neighborhood people about rumble strips, if that's a concern. And I understand that, because yes, it is loud. You know, that's what it's designed to do. Your car is going to be louder. If you drive my car, you will hear it, because my car sound. You know, I can't everything. You know, if I hit a speed hump, then it rattles. Now, I guess one solution could be to leave speed humps. I mean, to leave leave potholes in the road. But that doesn't seem like something that would that people probably wouldn't like that. Or utility cuts, we could leave those. But what I would suggest is that we take a specific look at rumble strips to see if neighborhoods don't like rumble strips, they will not like other permanent solutions, in my opinion. And emergency services and public services won't like permanent solutions, period. So I don't have a problem with trying it. I think what I'd like to do probably is reach out to the two neighborhoods and see if that's something they want to try. Like I said, these would be temporary things that you could pull up and take down. So if you said, we hate this, then we would take it back up. But I do think that you do that in conjunction with changing the speed limit, doing stop bars, restriping, and on the edges of the road and the center line to narrow visually what the road does. That is really, that in conjunction with additional education and enforcement could be a model for how you move this through town. And the reason I think that's important is because and the mayor can confirm this too. Vance Avenue is going to ask us the exact same questions. What can we do about people on that street? And so if these work, if these solutions meet the neighborhood's needs and serve our purpose for the community, then it's a model for how you move it through town. And that would be my suggestion. And like I said, again, it's a three-pronged approach. We'll increase enforcement, we'll increase education, and we'll establish visual cues to slow the traffic down through the neighborhood. I do think we need to bring back a recommendation on some speed limit consistency for some of these streets. That I don't disagree with. That is. And my guess is no different than any other community. That has happened piecemeal through town. That we've changed the speed limit here and not changed the speed limit there, and so now you come up from CBS and there's a big sign saying you're going it says 20 and it's flashing, the radar's flashing saying you just went 22. You turn on Doherty, you get to go 25. So I think some of those things just need to be more consistent. I'd like to bring that back to you but then the visual cues in addition to that, I think, can be a starting point for this. I'm not saying it's the end. I'm not saying this is the end game. I'm just saying that's where you start, in my opinion.
I think it sounds good. I like those ideas. I'm still just wondering on these speed tables. Because if, in fact, the emergency people here, and you talk about plowing and stuff, then why do we see them in other cities?
Well,
why do we see them in Asheville?
They are in other cities, and they are on some streets in Asheville. DOT doesn't allow them on their streets, and we have a handful of neighborhood streets here that, for example, rhododendron is one people have asked for those here. This is just, I'm not ruling that out. I would say based on my experience, and I worked in a city, the town of Huntersville, and they were very popular in the 90s. I put a lot of them in, and people did not like them. The neighborhoods didn't like them because so there were two things that ended up happening. And this is with with longer humps with a flat top, or shorter ones. First of all, you can't just put
Not the short ones, because those are the ones that tear up your car.
well, right, but even the longer ones, you can't put. First of all, you can't put one in because you just shift the speeding problem to somewhere else on the street. So you have to put them, and there's guidelines for how you put them in, but you got to put them 100 feet apart for so long a ways, because otherwise all you've done is you've told one person they won't speed in front of your house, they'll just speed in front of your neighbor's house. So you have, there are some guidelines for how they're installed. Generally, people don't want them. They want people to slow down. They don't want them in front of their house, because you have to, you got to line up the driveways, because if you back out or turn, you might have to go over one. There's actually a lot of dynamics to them. I'm not saying they wouldn't work on some streets, but they really are limited. My recommendation would be to try some of these options and see what we get. Black Mountain's going to continue to grow. It's going to continue to have traffic, and I'd like to find some solutions. And I'm not going to rule solutions out, but obviously I would like to try some options first, and then ratchet things up as we go through.
Well, what solutions are there besides those that we've already talked about?
Well, no.
What's left?
Well, I think what's
Well, you got. I get you got the tables and the bumps, but after that, what's left?
after speed tables and bumps.
Yeah.
Then that would be your. That would be.
We're planning on. You're planning on using every alternative available, except for what are some other solutions? Then?
There are what we call there's a solution called chicanes, where the road actually where you put bump outs with that are planted.
Like Charlotte Street.
Like Charlotte.
Kimberly.
Like him. And so instead of having a straight street, instead of seeing like
Okay.
Church Street looks like this, the street would be an S curve, and then it would physically slow you down. And that's actually, there are for Church Street we have some proposals that we're going to bring back to you for some watershed improvements that would almost make it do that.
Mm-hmm.
Now those of course become more and more costly because they change the design of the road.
So I get that one. Are there any other significant ones that we?
I'd have to look and see. Most of them, once you get past the visual cues, enforcement, you're looking more at actual changing the infrastructure of the road and making more narrow roads. And then but that doesn't mean that you can't do it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
I think you have to start with the speed limit first.
Yeah, well, I hear somebody saying stop signs. I think that is one thing. Again, with stop signs, of course, you run the risk of people knowing that it's not a. You end up with the California stop where you just kind of roll through, and people don't. Those require additional enforcement, and so you do have those issues. But yes, you can make more four-way stops. You can make physical changes to the road with speed tables and speed humps and chicanes and other design criteria.
I'm trying to think of a place where you'd add a stop sign. I'm not quite visualizing.
Conley
Yeah.
Street, Conley going down to the lake, right at the very end of that, because people go straight in front of McLarty's, the old Taylor house, and they get to the end and they just go straight down the hill.
Mm-hmm.
And they're flying. And also coming up. So they would stop there before they crest that hill.
Right at Joe's house.
But I think if we work on speed limits, enforcement of the speed limits and reducing those in the key areas, the visual cues and the striping, I think we can at least see what it does. The good thing is now with this we have a benchmark. This is what it was in January, right? So if we make improvements and you come back in a year and they say, hey, look, your speeds have gone up, then we know we didn't solve anything. But if they say, look, your speeds, some of the streets didn't cross the threshold for what they consider to be high speeds. So if the speeds drop down, then we know we've got that we've made improvements. I would, and I'm not saying I know the neighborhoods want to move quickly on improvements, and it's their neighborhoods. And they need solutions, but I think if we get these in place in the next 60 days, I don't see why that doesn't, that doesn't give us an opportunity to see what reductions come into place. And again, you know, the speed study didn't recommend lowering the speed limit, but I've talked to Mark Teague and I've talked to Lieutenant Austin, and I do think that there's an opportunity there. It's just an inconsistency with the speed limits on some of these streets, and it doesn't encourage you to drive faster. I think visually it looks like you should drive faster, and people do.
So, what's the proposal at this point in time?
That I'll bring back a recommendation of which streets to lower the speed limits on, and then we'll bring back, and part of that will be also which streets we're going to strike, where we're going to put stop bars. I would like to talk to some of the neighborhood representatives about rumble strips. I do think that provides an opportunity to at least give people the feeling of what it would take. I mean, I don't disagree with Julie, but I do think that I'm not sure that they're quite as obtrusive as that, and there may be a way to tie that in to looking up and seeing stop signs when you feel your car. You know, when you're close to a speed limit sign, when you're close to a stop sign, I do think there may be some opportunities. And again, like I said, if they're not permanent, it's the kind of thing where if somebody says, "Hey, we really hate this," then it's going to come out anyway. So I'd like to try those three things, and I'd like to bring that back to you in April of where we're going to do it and how we're going to do it. I mean, the only thing left out of this that we would bring back, really, I mean, I'll bring back the other parts. We have to wait for it to warm up to do some of the things. Is which streets we recommend lowering the speed limit on, and like I said, I don't disagree on. I think Charlotte Street behind the school is probably one. If that's 25, then I think that's again one that's probably inconsistent with the speed limits through these neighborhoods. And I'd like to bring that part back to you for approval, but I want to be specific to that, and I want to make sure that you all are comfortable with that in April. And I really can't stripe anything before April anyway because it's too cold.
Okay. All right, next then will be the Montessori School update. Katie Hanning.
So I'm Katie Hanning, I'm the director of Swannanoa Valley Montessori School, and it's really lovely to be here with you all this evening. And I just want to start out by saying that our school has had, in my opinion, a fantastic year so far. We're not quite done yet with our school year, existing at the Carver Community Center. And as you all know, we had been there before for a number of years with part of our school. And this was the first time that we had all been there together. And it has really been a long time in coming for one of our school's goals. And it's been a wonderful place to actualize one of those goals for our school. So I just wanted to share with you that it has been a positive experience all the way through. Everything from the design of the building originally being built for a school and the relationship with the Recreation and Parks Department as managing the building and our landlords and partnering or being around the other tenants in the building. The experience has just been very positive. Our staff, our students, our parents, they're thrilled to be there at our recent board retreat. The board members across the board in doing a blind, questioning about where they see us. Short and long term, the Carver Center is the answer that was written down. So it's really been great. One thing that we have done that I'd love to share with you with partnering is the Art in the Afternoon teacher teaches our students art during the afternoon school day. And so it's been really great to bring that together, use those other resources in the building. I'm here really to talk briefly about where, our future in the building, and we see ourselves, like I've already stated with the board, at the Carver Center. And we are, currently we are in our admissions process for the next school year and projecting ourselves forward and where we see ourselves going. And we're moving forward at a growth rate that is appropriate and slowly marching forward in a way that we can do it to grow with the best practices in mind to be able to serve the students as best that we can. So we feel really good about the way we are moving forward with our admissions. What our admissions movement forward means for us right now is that in the immediate moment, we don't need more classroom space, but we need more multi-use space or space for anything that happens outside of the school time with the teacher. Specials, music, art that we use in other part of the building, PE class, tutoring, small group, one-on-one meetings, parent-teacher meetings, staff break room, after-school space. And so that's the area in which we immediately need to be able to grow in, and that's the space within which Casey and I have discussed and begun talking about how do we use more of the space in the school while also maintaining the desire by the town for it to be a multi-use building. And so within that, we've had a number of different things come forth, and it's a really, in my opinion, good conversation process as we are seeking to meet both our needs and the town's needs within that building. Additionally, we feel like we are being very good stewards of the property, both inside and out. We have a cleaning person and a maintenance person that helps us in addition to our own personal care of the property and the building. Being in a public use building also increases some of our needs in a different way. For instance, our playground that's designed for 3 to 6 year olds, the standards that we need to meet in order to satisfy the Recreation and Parks Department standards, those standards are higher than what we need to meet for daycare licensing standards, so to speak. So what equipment-wise worked for us historically, we have to start up our game, which means we have to fundraise and we have to figure out how to get new equipment to be able to meet those needs of being in a public property. So that brings me really to the 2 points or the 2 requests that we're seeking, and one is the renewal of our lease. And within that, currently we have a 1-year lease. For us to seek funding for something like new playground equipment, a 1-year lease makes us very unattractive to funders. We're not a really great, we're high risk. So having a longer lease makes us more attractive to other funders or to grants that we would be approaching. So we're seeking a 3 to 5 year lease renewal time period. And then in addition, really the other thing that we're seeking right now is an opportunity to negotiate the terms and agreement about how we can increase our use in the building and at what rate through a process of talking with Casey and whatever Casey needs to go through appropriately to be able to come to those terms and agreements. That's really what we're seeking. So a renewal of our lease with an increase in our time period and the ability to continue negotiating the terms for that renewal with Casey. And I'd love to answer any questions that you might have, give you any information that might help in this process.
Anybody wish to speak? Go ahead.
The only thing I'd say is thank you for coming and thanks for the report, Katie. And just really kind of the same story as when we were talking this time last year. About?
Yeah, it was about
this time last year.
Right.
It's just that balancing act which you've already mentioned between our need to be, a piece of public property and to manage it from that perspective, and to also meet those needs. And so they're always not, they're not going to match necessarily. There's a little tension, and there's always going to be there. But I think with Matt's input and guidance, we don't need to make a decision tonight.
No, and my question,
Yeah.
Katie, was going to be, what's the timeline for when you, I think, we've talked briefly about these things and we have some framework, but at some point you've got to know what we can do and we've got to know what you can do. What's a timeline for that? May, June? No, not June.
No, not June.
Okay.
May.
That's fine.
Yeah, by May to get the lease renewal terms settled would be lovely. And one thing that's going to be important for us as we look ahead, as a school, as we were to grow, if there becomes a realistic stop from the town standpoint as to what is possible for us within that building, then that's really important for us to know as we say to ourselves, how do we continue to invest in this property? How do we say this won't work for us? So that's the other piece, that if there's going to be a limitation that would prohibit us from being able to provide for these families and be able to exist in a way that would hopefully benefit the entire community as well, that would be really helpful guidance for us.
I would say, excuse me, Mayor, I'm sorry. I would say I want to clarify, and I can only speak for myself, but it's not, the 1 year lease is not an issue with me anyway. I can only speak for myself. It's really extending it out and making that commitment that you know, I'm a little hesitant on at this point in time. Just need to kind of work that through a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Well, I appreciate you sharing that. And I would welcome any way that we can do to help see how do we continue to benefit the community, or how can our space that we would say be exclusively ours can also still be used by others to facilitate that multi-use, because that really is really important to us as a mission for our entire school. So I appreciate that concern and hope to be able to speak to it as best we can and as we move forward.
But you're saying that for grant purposes, it would be much more conducive for you to have a longer lease?
Correct. Since we're not owners of the property, the next thing that they would look to is what kind of rental terms do we have. And in order to look attractive, we kind of get knocked out if we just have a 1 year lease, which therefore limits our ability to raise funds to invest in something. I'd love to say, hey, if you all want to build us a new playground, $25,000 to $30,000 playground to meet the needs of the town for 3 to 6 year olds, great. We don't need to look for that grant funding for that particular item. However, we would really like to partner in that possibility. Being in the Recreation and Parks Department building makes us more attractive in some ways for grants, because it could be meeting multiple needs. But depending on who's putting forth the grant, if we're the ones doing the work and putting forth the grant with a 1 year lease, as opposed to the town putting forth the grant with somebody who's renting the building who would also benefit from it, it becomes a different story.
Back when we first started, there were things that you wanted the town to do as far as improvements on the building, and there were improvements that you were going to do and that you guys were going to pay for. I think the number's like $23,000 that all of a sudden, a few months ago, we were gifted that the $23,000 of stuff that you were going to do and that you were going to pay for was not going to happen, and that we were going to have to set it up on a loan, like a town loan, and repay the town. Can you tell me what happened on that?
Sure.
Scenario?
So when we were figuring out what we would do, and then what the town, what you all felt like you ought to be doing based on it being a town building, it was brought to my attention that the town wanted to pay for things that we were ultimately financially responsible for, as opposed to us paying for it.
All right.
And so I said, fine, however, we don't plan on paying for this out of pocket. We're going to be paying for this through some sort of a loan process where we would be making a repayment. So if the town is willing to do a repayment process with us, that's fine. But if not, then no, we can't turn around and spend $23,000 that we were going to spread out over 3 years with someone else, but then pay it immediately to the town. So that was the process that I went through. That when we went that way, I was of the understanding that we would be able to repay it over time.
So it's a source of funding and timing of payback.
Correct.
Whether this entity gave you 3 years or we gave you 3 years.
Correct. Right. As I understood it, that got brought up when, my understanding of the side of the conversation was that the town wanted to pay for things as opposed to us pay for them, even though ultimately we were the ones.
That is correct. The town was to be able to manage the money. They would pay for everything. You would reimburse the town for the things that you were supposed to reimburse the town for. The things the town had agreed to do, obviously you didn't have to reimburse. Well, I'm just curious, was there someone in staff that told you that it was going to be okay to not pay that $23,000?
To not pay it? No one ever said we shouldn't not pay it.
It was set up, though, that we were supposed to do the work, which we did, and we were supposed to be reimbursed. How was it determined that the town was going to have to finance that for you? Because that was not what the understanding was of this board, I don't think.
You're asking the wrong person, because what I've told you is all the information that I have regarding that process.
And I think when we worked it out at the beginning, we had, similar to other projects that we've done where we said we would like all the funding to come through the town so that we have a paper trail that tracks it.
Same thing on Town Square.
That's right. That's right. So that was a decision made by me and staff that would say, we'll, you know, we need to let this thing run through the town so that we have a paper trail that you know, when we had talked about it initially, we talked about some, you know, you had said maybe you might have people that could do projects, but we didn't really we wanted to have some control over the projects. And so some control over the bidding of it, some control over the service of it. That was fine. I mean, it wasn't, but I think that what that led to then is that instead of you paying somebody else back, you pay the town back. And that was a decision that we made to get them to get the improvements made. I think with the lease rate, we're still going to be ahead of the game by March of 2018.
I understand, but when it was set up, it was originally, we were going to get reimbursed by them right after the work was finished and complete. Is that correct?
Well, I think we thought there might be some opportunities for grants that didn't pan out. So there wasn't an opportunity to reimburse immediately, and so we had to use the same kind of schedule that Katie was going to use with whoever else she was going to use to make the improvements.
You know, Katie, I think you can probably get the gist of it. What our concern would be, as much as we appreciate the Montessori School and what you do for the community, that we have other not-for-profit entities that do a lot of good things in the community, and so it's, you know, we want, at least personally, I'll speak for myself, I would want to avoid the implication that we have a favorite, that we're basically lending money to one nonprofit in town when we might not do that with others and so forth, and obviously we can't do it with all of them. So those are some of the issues which I think you understand. It's kind of that's what creates the tension in you know, using public property and leasing it out and so forth. Mm-hmm. I will say this, and I think Matt or Dee might be aware of it, but I serve on the county audit committee, and the county is ready to get out of any lease they have and sell the building or do whatever they want, because it's just an awkward thing to lease public property. Yeah. So.
Well, is it fair to say that we should discuss with Katie over the next 60 days to bring something back to discuss
I think so, yeah.
extensions and improvements, or no?
Improvements, yes. As far as extensions, I'll speak for myself like Larry has. I'm a little hesitant to do that, because this is Black Mountain taxpayer property. And doing it on a yearly basis, you can continue to do that as long as things are going like they're supposed to do. I don't want to enter into a long-term lease and then all of a sudden we have issues and problems. Not that I would be expecting to have those problems, but at the same token, I'd like to be able to bow out and gracefully say, guys, it's not working out and this is why, within a year instead of 3 years down the road, if it doesn't work out. If it's working great, I think year to year to year is fine. Mm-hmm. That's my personal opinion.
I certainly can respect, the perspective and the angle that you built up behind that and the why behind it. And I certainly would love to talk further in any way to help you all be able to find a way to increase that length of time. When we went into the building, we went into it with the good faith that we would be there for a really long time, and that when we'd be investing our school's money into it, that it wasn't our property, that we'd be investing into somebody else's property. And so it's a big risk for us as well to be putting money into the public and into the town like this. I hear you all say that you're not quite sure how it ended up that you were the lenders, and again, that was a suggestion that came to us, not one that we asked for. So I can't speak to that piece of it, but
we never, and I think this is fair. You'll help me if I misunderstand. I think that was our perspective last year, that one year leases would work well for us.
So at that time, I did say we'd been operating under a one-year
Yeah.
lease, and it had been just fine.
Right.
And we also were existing within a building that was owned by a founding parent of the organization who was a board member who they were invested they bought the building for the school. And so the lease agreement and the landlord arrangement was different. Just it's a fact, we look more attractive if we have a longer lease.
Well, Katie, why don't you and I talk some and see if we can work out some of the other details. It sounds like I'm getting a clear direction on some of the details, and we'll see if there's some other opportunities for some of the shared space that I think we've talked about. And if there's not, then we'll see how where we can meet in the middle on some things.
And before you leave, it's a good thing about being able to walk in that building again and feeling it, that you have kids there.
Yeah.
That place was built as a school, and that's what it is a school. It's not a community center, it's a school. And there are a lot of, I don't want to use the word ghost, but a lot of entities that are still there who have gone to that school, and they see themselves in those kids. Mm-hmm. So I commend you folks for the job you've done, and for me, whatever we can do as a board, or whatever I can do to help you folks get to where you need to be, because it is for not only the betterment of you, it's for the betterment of the town. Mm-hmm. And that's the main thing for me. We look at situations, we have to look at each situation on its own merit. I think once this board gets in a position where we start rubber stamping things, that's where you have problems. So I think you have to look at every situation on its merits, what's the good that can come out of it. Right now, you guys are doing an excellent job. Keep up the good work. When I walk in that school building, I feel a school. I don't feel a community center.
Well, and thank you for your kind comments. And it reminds me that there have been a few neighborhood community members who have come through the building over the past year and have commented how they remember going to school there. And it just is really nice to see the school being used, or to see the property having lots of children running around on it.
And Matt, when you discuss this with Katie, I personally would like you to discuss the lease terms on it, as far as a longer lease than a one-year lease. I understand the concerns, but there's no harm in evaluating it.
Okay.
And
we'll bring back
it is a big compliment, not only to Katie but to you and the staff for all that you've done to upgrade that building. Because 3 years ago, when I got on this board, we were not in a position to house anything there. And now we have a very desirable asset that's working for the community as it should. So that's a compliment to you and to Jamie and to everyone that has put in hard work and effort, and to Katie and the rest of her board members for doing that. So I just want to say thank you for that. And for me personally, I'm willing to work with you as best we can, because I do think this is a long-term asset. It's good for people to have options in this community, and we want you to be successful there.
Thank you.
One thing that I think you have mentioned the word, you were saying can we help you? One way that you, I think, can help is go ahead and bring to Matt, before you all come back to us just to talk, is to give an overall as to the Montessori school, the ages that are there, mm-hmm. the way that you're moving forward in increasing class sizes, if you are going to be increasing your age groups, mm-hmm. or if you're just restricted within a certain, you said 3 to 6.
We serve through 6th grade.
So that 3 to 6 will remain the same. You're not going to go beyond 6.
The 3 to 6 age range, I was referring specifically to the playground that we are financially responsible for.
But you go beyond that in age.
2.5 years old through 12 years old.
Okay, so that's what I'm saying. So see now you said 3 to 6 is for the playground, but that you're going to go up to 12. So that as you project ahead 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, that will help this board deal with that, because there is other space there that might work into this mix if in fact you're looking towards doubling your size. So that would help the discussion to be able to know that. Also too, as I think that would help you on your 3 to 6 is exactly what do you need, what is required for that playground.
For that playground.
so that may be able to be broken down in a way, not that the town is going to do it, but the way that we may be able to help facilitate you in achieving those minimum requirements. And if you wish to go beyond those minimums, fine. But that this way you may not have to go for a grant as large as what you're thinking, in that there may be ways to secure facility, playground equipment that can be made locally cheaper. That's one thing. So if you can do that, I think that would help. And just one last thing, I just want to ask Matt. I can't recall, back to what Don was saying here. This had to be decided on the money. Did we vote again? When we voted to go ahead and agree to this last year, for the
Yes.
23,000.
For we also had improvements.
And
too.
so then, did you bring back to this board a package?
The payment schedule for that, yes.
That was talking on the payment
For
schedule.
the 23,000, yes, we did that in January.
Okay, if you can
I'll get you the.
get me that, please, because I'd like to see, because I think that may get to the question that Don had as to where, as she was saying, where did this information come from?
Okay, we've got that. That's from a couple months ago, but I'll get that to you.
Okay, very good. Thanks, appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you all.
Okay, we're on consent agenda, Matt.
All right, you've got the adoption of minutes from your February 9th and your February 13th regular session. We've got a call, a call for public hearing for text amendments to the land use code. Basically, what we're trying to do here is have it be consistent, have the some of the street requirements consistent with the fire code. So you've got a call for public hearing for April 10th for that. You've got a copy of the Recreation and Park Strategic Plan. This is one of the conditions of their CAPRA accreditation process. So this is a lot of planning opportunities that they have. Some of them are internal or administrative, and some of them are external. But those are the Recreation and Park Strategic Plan is basically a requirement for the CAPRA accreditation. You've got a resolution to apply for the Part F grant in May. We've done this a couple of times. Well, no, we've done it one time. And this is improvements at Veterans Park. This is for a pavilion, year-round bathrooms, and a playground. There actually are two options here because we've reached out again to Chuck Campbell. You remember that a couple of years ago we applied for a grant that included purchasing property beside Recreation or Veterans Park, and so we have basically two opportunities. Depending on, in the past he's not been, well, he was open to it one time and then he hasn't been open to it, and now he's possibly open to the opportunity to sell his property again. If you'll remember, if he sells the property at below the appraised value, we get the difference between the appraised value and the cost of the property. It's basically called a bargain sale, and you can use that as part of your match. I would also point out that the Kiwanis Club has been kind enough to offer some money for the pavilion, and that money, their contribution would also go towards our match. So you're looking in the range of, like I said, this is a grant that we apply for in May. This is around, for the town's contribution, somewhere around $100,000 over the next 3 years to make these improvements.
And that 100 is,
That'd be our portion.
but that's not, if you net it out,
It would go down. It would go down if you get, and it would go down if well, if you do the if you buy the property too, then the value goes up of the entire project to, I think, $180,000. But then we would get credit driving it back down.
Right.
We would get the credit for the property and a credit for the for the pavilion.
So the $100,000 number is you have to clarify for me again, I'm kind of mixed up. The $100,000 number, you're not factoring in, or are you factoring in the Kiwanis
No,
monies?
not factoring
And
into
you,
it.
and then what are you factoring in as far as the
Well, I don't quite.
Are you
I don't
factoring
quite-
in anything on it?
I'm not factoring anything in it quite yet because
Okay.
I don't know yet what he would want for
So-
it or how it would appraise.
So 100,000, but then the Kiwanis money will help with that.
If you just did those improvements, if the property's included, then you gotta buy the property, but then you get a credit
You get the
for
credit
buying the
back.
property at a lesser value. I had to bring that back to you. What I'm really.
But it sort of washes, is what you're saying, the
It could-
property part
It would
does.
still cost more, but it would be a wash.
Right.
It would still be a better value, so, because you would get more out of the project. What I'm really wanting to know is, do you want to, I guess what I'm really wanting to know is, do you want to apply for the grant in May that will include a pavilion, a playground, and year-round bathrooms with the potential for Chuck Campbell's property? Those would be the four things, and when I know whether Chuck Campbell is in or out, I can bring that back to you, and you can decide. I mean, you know, obviously, you're not saying, if you say tonight, yes, I want to apply for the grant, then we have it in the minutes that the board is in favor of the grant. If you come back and say, we changed our mind, then we change, then you're not committed to you're not committing to a grant tonight. We're just trying to fill in some of these gaps for what we
Right,
can and can't
and
do.
all I was trying to clarify is the funds we're committing are in the neighborhood of $100,000.
Yes.
Depending
At
on,
least-
depending
yes, at
on the
least-
land.
At least,
issue.
yes, I would say at least $100,000, unless you get the land, then it's more, but you get more value for your dollar.
Get more grant
And your
money.
money could go down even from 100 if the Kiwanis money comes in.
I would recommend that you go ahead and speak with some realtor appraiser, even if it costs us some dollars.
We are.
Let's get some idea of what the land, because I mean,
Yes.
what
And I think- and we've got
wants,
somebody
what
on-
he wants for it is opposed to what it's valued at.
We actually have
And
to
it'll
do
make a
that for the
difference.
grant. Yes, sir. We actually have to do that because that's how you get the value. You know, and I'll just use round numbers, but let's say it's valued at 150, and he says, I'll sell it to you at 75, then you get 75, you know, then you're getting, then that's how much credit we get towards the grant. So, in a roundabout way. Now, those are I'm just making up numbers there.
But we do know that half this land is in floodway.
Yes, and
Or
we
what
had,
used to be
but we
called
had it
floodway,
appraised a
anyway.
few years ago when we did this the first time, and I think it appraised, Casey, at 130? 133. So, but it could, I don't know how, but we are lining up an appraiser. You're exactly right. We have to do that. So I'll bring that back to you. That changes, that really is the difference between whether you go above 100 or around 100 with the Kiwanis money, because the property purchase makes a difference in the grant. He has to sell it at a rate that's below the appraised value for us to get credit for that difference. So I got to bring that back to you. Mostly what I want to know is, do you want to apply for a Part F grant in May or not?
Yeah. All right, do I hear a motion for the consent agenda?
So moved.
Any discussion? Any item you want to pull off? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, that was unanimous. The chair, okay, we've got citizens' comments now, and the chair is going to go ahead and interpret that we have some unfinished business because we discussed the neighborhood roadway assessment, and therefore, is there any speaker that wishes to speak to the neighborhood roadway assessment as far as traffic, any kind of traffic issues?
I would.
Okay, you got 3 minutes, and yeah, come on.
I'll take that one. For the study.
My name is Will Chapman. I live at 104 4th Street. So that's part of the discussion tonight. Matt and I have talked a couple times, I do believe, at least one time. Trying to get my notes here so I have it ready. So the rumble strips, we do have them on 4th Street. Sorry I couldn't be here earlier because I think I could have shedded some light on that. It's in front of Nick Swan's house, which is in front of 102 4th Street, which is right in the middle of 4th Street. Unfortunately, I don't have much confidence in the rumble strips. I can tell how fast the cars are going just because of this noise. That's like 35 miles an hour. Boom, 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 boom. It's 20 miles an hour. I don't know if it's really slowing down people. looked into several things on my own, rumble strips versus humps. The problem with humps is probably what Matt kind of alluded to a little bit. It's a lot of gas, then brake, then shocks hitting, and then gas again, and it's just kind of a lot of a noise issue. There's been several studies out there now on radars and how they seem to be the most cost-effective way in which it's a visual, it flashes, and it actually slows people down. Thank you for the update on, I didn't understand why we never had one on 4th Street. Seems like it just didn't work. The other thing, the flags were great. We've put up signs. We tried to do a little something. On that other side of the road, we never got that speed sign up. It seemed like that may be I don't know. It's evidently you just can't plant one. You got to figure out where to put it. I thought those were good. We have 16 kids on 4th Street. It's a very small street, but we do have 16 kids, and 7 of them are under 5 years old. So we're all out and around, and it just seems to be kind of an issue. Definitely, I don't know if they're opening up 6th Street. I know there's a lot of development there. I didn't know if that would reroute some of the traffic to 6th Street. And we have talked as neighborhood, as neighbors, to actually propose to close 4th Street. Personally, I feel like that's just kind of putting the buck on someone else. But it's my understanding if we all came to agreement, we could actually try to close that thing. Just as another, I think you were talking about earlier, where are we with, we can hand out tickets and stop signs, but what else could we do? Maybe opening up 6th Street or closing 4th Street or vice versa. I thought would be good. And then alluded to the data taken 18 feet away. It was down on that side of, I'm kind of in the middle. I think the data may have been skewed a little bit in the fact that they may have been slowing down or speeding up through the stop sign, and they were already hitting almost 30 miles an hour 20 feet away from the stop sign. Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
Anybody else wish to speak to traffic?
I do. I guess so. 3 minutes. 3 minutes, yes, sir. I'll find a way to tackle you in the street while you run down Blue Ridge Road. Maybe that way I can get my voice heard. But so back to the traffic issues that are so important to all of us and all the people that are here to speak to it and think about it. So the actionable things you have to think about, and I'm going to go through them quickly. There was an amendment that should come before you soon relative to zoning change on land use that the planning board, as a member, recommended, which was what you give thought to any time you close a street to ask the Greenways Commission to become involved in it. And that means, how do we route traffic? How do we route pedestrian traffic versus car traffic? And how do we do it safely? And some of these roads that are these streets that are being closed have been unopened streets and alleyways, and many times it's appropriate to close them just because that's the appropriate thing. But I've put that forth to the Greenways Commission in the future to give thought to how do we manage these potential right-of-ways that the town of Black Mountain has. And they are right-of-ways that the town of Black Mountain has, to give thought to how to think about them in a futuristic way. So that's one actionable thing you've got to do. The next one you could possibly do is to give thought to I'm jumping ahead to the traffic downtown, and I'm going to call it the circling parking lot conundrum. So the traffic parking downtown has really gotten to the point that it's driving up more traffic on these extra streets and all these pedestrian streets. And here's how it happens. It's simply this. The merchants and their employees show up at 10 o'clock and they park wherever is most convenient on all the parking that's available to them, be it Cherry Street, be it Church Street, be it wherever. And there's no consequence to them staying there for 10 hours or whatever they have to work in their day. And I got that. But if you think, give pause a moment to how that makes for circulating parking lots. When all those parking lots fill up, and I guarantee if you walk down there at 10 o'clock, half of those lots are filled up. And so for the customers to come moments later, they circle the parking lot at times, Drippolator and all these places, they circle the parking lot at times trying to find parking. Well, that drives up traffic on the roads. So maybe it's time to give thought to charging for parking. And merchants may climb and scream at you for that. But if they're thoughtful about it, they'll realize they'll create more parking for their customers. And what does that do relative to the traffic? Well, at least it stops all the people who can't find parking along the way.
And if you could go ahead and put in writing these recommendations and give them to Matt, please, I would like to see them.
I'll be glad to do it.
Thank you. Okay, we got a new business, public records policy.
Yes, you have well, we formalized our public records request. We seem to be having more and more of those, which is a good thing. We want to be as open and transparent as possible. So we have a public records request policy. It basically lays out, the public records request process goes through Angela at the clerk's office, except for police incident reports, fire incident reports. Those are for insurance purposes and some personnel items. I know we have a section in here. This was the question from the agenda meeting about the fees, which we don't. And I want to be clear. We're required. Well, not required, but we do have a cost, a fee schedule that goes with it. You can see it on page 5, and we generally, if you ask for electronic copies, we don't charge anything. If you ask for paper copies, we've not charged. I think we've charged people one time for these fees, for the cost of making those copies. And we put down a fee schedule that included 2 cents per copy, or 9 cents if it's a color copy. But I think some of the questions might be the questions that we had gotten from some board members might be what did other places charge? The Buncombe County, the court filing fees, which I think, Angela, you'll correct me if I'm wrong here, are statutorily set. Is that right? So those are a little bit higher. So they're $2 for the first page and 25 cents for additional pages. But you can, for example, Town of Montreat charges 10 cents a page. Town of Maggie Valley charges 20 cents a page. You do have to be able to justify what your costs are. I'll be honest with you, I don't have any intention of charging people who come in and ask for 2 pages and say, I want my 4 cents. But if somebody says we need 1,000 pages, then I think there should be there should be a fee schedule that we can go back and reasonably say, instead of just making one up at the time and saying, well, you should give us $100. We can say, look, here's our fee schedule, and we're willing to waive that if it's something reasonable, but we're not willing to waive it if it falls into the category of something that we need. I'm not uncomfortable with the cost that we have in our request, but I will gladly point out that other towns, Waynesville, Montreat, and Maggie Valley, range from 10 cents to 20 cents per copy, where ours is 2 cents per copy. But this is not a money-making opportunity for the town. This is our opportunity to abide by the public records laws of North Carolina, and that's really what we're trying to do here, and that's what this policy formalizes. But that was a question that you all had, and I want to make sure you have the information that you need.
Okay, do I go ahead and hear a motion?
So moved.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous? Thank you, Angela. Good job. Okay. Now move on to the public hearing to rezoning property on Reunion Hill Lane from urban residential UR8, which means 8 per acre, to suburban residential, 2 per acre.
And if you don't mind, I'll call on Josh to just give you a brief overview of what the issue is.
going to be doing this solo tonight. I don't know that any member that petitioned is here, so I'll try and answer questions best I can if they come up. But as the mayor stated, this is a rezoning request from 8 properties on Reunion Hill Lane that you can see highlighted in green on the map up there. They're requesting to be rezoned from UR8, which is urban residential, to SR2, which is suburban residential. Suburban residential is shown on the map. It's the almost white color there, the light color. UR8 is, of course, the dark brown or orange color. This went before the planning board in January. They did vote to recommend this and move it on to the Board of Aldermen. As I mentioned, it's 8 parcels. The parcels are listed on the cover sheet in front of you. And a couple things to point out: the current lots to be rezoned are being used for single-family residential now. 5 of the 8 lots have single-family homes on them now. The other 3 are vacant. And of course, single-family residential is a permitted use in UR8 as well as SR2. And by rezoning this, you're not disturbing the surrounding neighborhood since it's existing single-family residential. And it's also consistent with our comprehensive plan. We are maintaining the small town character and community identity and appearance of housing in neighborhoods, even though you're changing from UR8 to SR2. I think the mayor asked about sewer. There is not public sewer that extends into these 8 pieces of property, so it would be a private line if there is one. Did not research that, but the MSD sewer line does not run into those 8 pieces of property. And I can try and answer questions if you've got them.
Did everyone, I know they're not required to, but I think that one of the questions last week was, did everybody sign off, physically sign off?
We did have
requesting it.
We got the last signature Friday, actually. So we do have all 8 signatures on each piece of property.
Any questions? Thank you, Josh. Need a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
All in favor? Anyone other than the 8 who are not here wish to speak?
Well, I served on the planning board and we agreed to it.
Okay. If not, do I hear a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous there. Need a motion to rezone 8 parcels on Reunion Hill from UR8 to SR2.
So moved.
Any discussion? Not? All in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. Now we need to get a motion to adopt statement of consistency as presented.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous there too. Okay. Communications from staff.
I have none.
Matt?
I do have a couple of things. I would like to invite the board to an unveiling of a piece of art at the Riverwalk Greenway that's been donated. I think the Greenway Commission is that right, Casey? The Greenway Commission was involved with this. It's near the dog park, and they're doing an unveiling of this art piece on Friday, March the 17th at noon. Should be pretty casual, but if anybody can make time to get down there, they have a piece of art that's been donated that kind of fits in nicely with the Greenway vision there. And I would invite all of you all to come, or anybody that you know, anybody in the public that's interested. It's March the 17th at noon. Would also just encourage you to go to there's the League of Municipalities has a new website called Here We Grow. Feel free to look this up online. It basically highlights economic development success stories across the state, of which we are considered one, and we have a nice story on there. And it's a good resource to review And you can get it on our website. Is that right? Thank you very much. See, look how she's on the case. So if you go to townofblackmountain.org, you'll see you'll be able to. We have a link there for Here We Grow. It's like I said, it's about economic development across the state. But we have a story highlighted on there, and I'd love for everybody to read it and see what other success stories are going on around the state. There's a lot going on, and I think that we should be proud of some of those economic development success stories. And that reminds me of my last thing, which is that I'll be out of town in Chapel Hill tomorrow through Thursday at an Economic Development Academy that the School of Government is doing. So I'll, of course, be available, but I just want to let the board know that I won't be here for a few days. I'll be at a class at an academy. I have a couple of days again in April, but it's about strategies for community development and economic development, and I think there'll be some positive things I can bring back during the budget process. And that's all that I have.
And speaking of budget, we'd like to plan a budget workshop on Tuesday, April the 18th, or Wednesday the 19th. If y'all are willing to go ahead and commit to that tonight, fine. If not, we just need to get with Angela to see.
Yeah. And we would do it in the morning. I think that works. I think that's worked best in the past.
I'm good with either day, but I think the night.
That may be tough for you, Larry.
I prefer the 19th, yeah.
I mean, me also.
The 19th?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Better for me.
Well, you all check your schedules again. We're just trying to get it. We're trying to get on.
It sounds like the
Let's do the
19th, but double check,
Okay.
Angela, if you would, with those two there, Carlos and me.
The 19th.
Sounds like we're good.
You want to set your time?
Let's see, which time do we just do?
8:30 or 9, that's
That's right. You better get it going.
9.
An extra half hour there, shut up. Last thing I've got is, they had the Martin Luther King breakfast a couple weeks ago, and I'd just like to say thank you to Carlos for organizing and running that. Did a good job. Anybody else, anything else to say?
I have, Dean, just a question to follow up on. I was looking at the ABC compliance audit, and it mentions under some of the financial data that the sales increased, and this was fiscal year 15, ending 15, 10%, but expenses 17, which I think is probably the funds expended for architectural fees and so forth. But I'm just sort of curious, maybe sometime.
Yeah, I'll take a look at it. I
Yeah,
have not.
because usually it's such and such sync.
Right.
And I also noticed in the report that they're recommending that there's about $100,000 in excess working capital too, so we'll keep our eye on it.
I think, though, if you recall, and we can go back and look at this, I think they had requested some authority to set that aside in a capital reserve fund.
Set all of the 100,
I don't know about all of it.
100,000.
I think they have some leeway, and I wouldn't
Yeah.
speak to that. But
Yeah.
they
That's
did
right, that's it. So
they
you
did
can-
ask to set up a capital reserve fund similar to our capital reserve funds and start diverting money into that for some future expansion, future renovations.
Very good. But with one board member here, but that work looks good. Thank you for your work.
And Mr. Mayor, if I could follow up on something that Doug started to allude to earlier about the unfortunate accident uptown, and I'm about to lose my voice, but there are lots of fundraisers that are going on for Coach O from Montreat. I would encourage people to please be involved. If you can, give what you can, even if it's the least amount. Anything that you can give will be greatly appreciated by the family. There are fundraisers that are going on. There are more fundraisers that are going to be happening. And, you know, I got to tell people this: dig deep. Imagine it was your own family member. Thank you.
All right. That's it. We're adjourned.